You know, over the last handful of years, I've had the opportunity to share the story of Wine to Water and how it got started to a number of different audiences and groups of people. But I don't really know if I've ever told the whole story, the deep parts of the story that maybe sometimes I'm a little afraid to share. So I figured I'd take this opportunity to do that right now and to tell y'all the real story of how things got going with Wine to Water about 15 years ago. I was actually in this house right here. I was in this room right behind me. For a number of years prior to this night, deep down, I felt like that God was calling me for something. But I would always do whatever I could to push that voice down or to push it out of my mind, because there was something about it that, I don't know, maybe I guess it scared me. And so I spent a while running in the opposite direction. And leading up to the night where Wine to Water all started, I had gone through a pretty, I guess, bad series of events, one after another, one mistake after another mistake after another mistake in my life, where I got to a point where I was too tired to keep running. I couldn't keep running anymore. And I remember vividly a very important day. I was in a really dirty old bathroom in the back of a bar, and I was just tired of running, and I got down on my knees in this bathroom, and I told the good Lord, whatever you want from me, I'll do it. I don't know what that means or what it is, and I'm terrified, to be honest with you, of what that means, but I can't do this anymore. I packed up my pickup truck that same day, and I drove up here to Boone, North Carolina, where my parents were living in this house. And I went up to go to sleep in that bedroom right above me. And it was that night that all this happened. I couldn't sleep, tossing and turning in my bed, and I remember vividly that phrase, Wine to Water, in my head over and over. And I knew that it was a part of what was to come. I had no idea what that really meant. Even to the point where I've told some people I thought maybe this was just an idea for a song. Maybe I'm going to sit down and write a cool song, Wine to Water, and how it, the play of words on Jesus' first miracle. I had no idea what was to come. But I couldn't sleep. I walked down these stairs right into that room right there. And I sat down with a pad and pencil, and I got on a computer, and I started just researching the different words I had on the page. Wine and water, really. And it was something about water that just captivated me. I started researching about water, learning about this global water crisis that was out in the world that I had no idea about. There was something about that just it reeled me in. It captivated me that night. And before I knew it, I had began to plan the very first event for Wine to Water, which was a very simple concept. I'd never been a part of any fundraisers really in my whole life, been a part of any nonprofit organizations or anything like that, but I knew if I was going to try to have any type of impact with what I was seeing on the screen, that there were these people in the world that don't have access to something that I've had my entire life and never had to think about. I can go to a tap and get clean water. I can sit in my shower for 10 minutes if I want to. If I was going to have any type of impact to help these people, then I knew I needed to figure out a way to raise some funding. And the only resources I had in all those years of running the service industry, that bar industry, I knew deep down, they have such a heart for their communities. and for the global community. And I knew if I brought something like this to that bar crowd, the pub crowd, the restaurant and bar crowd, that maybe they would be as captivated as at the need for clean water around the world as I am and as I was. So we held the very first Wine to Water event. This was about 6 weeks after that evening in this house. It did well. We've had another couple events after that, and before I knew it, that same year, I partnered with another really awesome organization based right here in North Carolina, partnered with them and moved to Sudan, and I lived there for a year. And that's really where Wine to Water was born, out of this place right here that I'm sitting in. And the last 15 years have not been easy. And to be honest with you, if I'd have been shown what was to come, I may have been more terrified than I was before I even knew what was to come. Because things haven't been easy, but I promise you, I wouldn't go back and change that day on the bathroom floor in that bar for nothing. I would have changed any of it. And so I tell this story because at Wine to Water, we're trying to do something right now. We're trying to encourage people to remember the things that have brought you where you are, good or bad. To remember why you're here. And the reason why behind me there's a table and why we're trying to set that table is because we believe there's no better place to do that than around a bar, around a table with people and around good conversation. For literally thousands of years, if you think about maybe one of the most famous meals, suppers of all time, it happened 2,000 years ago in a room, and the meal that they were eating, everything down to every dish, every piece of food, it stood for something. It meant something. It had a purpose. From the lamb to the bread to the wine, every single thing on that table had a very intended purpose, and they used that meal to remember something that God had done for them in their past. And so we want to encourage our community to do the same thing. To gather around a table, to bring your friends and your families, your loved ones, maybe even invite somebody that you wouldn't normally invite to a meal. But bring people around the table and remember. Tell stories. I think a lot of times in our culture, we don't have time to remember anymore. Even when we try to replay that dinner over and remember that very special meal, we remember it with a shot glass and a little piece of a cracker because we don't have time to sit and have a meal with our friends and family and talk about the things that He's done. So we want to encourage our community to take the time, set a table, have everything on that table mean something to you. Maybe it represents something in your life, that a difficult time, a good time, and share a story with your friends and your family of what that time meant and how it's brought you to where you are. And very importantly, maybe most importantly, if you find yourself remembering and at a place where you feel like you're maybe not where you need to be. Maybe you're remembering and you're thinking about where you are, and maybe you're just like me and you're in the middle of running as far and as fast from where you know you need to be and where you're supposed to be. Take the time to answer that call. Take the time to give in and say, okay. Because it's exhausting running. And so I want to end with a welcome to our table. This is the very first one. I know everybody out there can't be here with us, but I wanted to take the opportunity to remember a very small part of my story and the story that God's allowed me to have, because I wouldn't be here without him. Wine and Water is not mine. If it was up to me, this would have all been a disaster a long time ago. But my God is faithful. And even when he calls and I don't answer and I run the opposite direction, he comes after me. He's done the same for this organization. We're a group made up of very imperfect people. Not one of us has our act together. And that's okay, because our God is faithful. And all he asks of us is to be willing to answer the call and to be obedient. So we welcome you to our table. We want to encourage you in this season to take the time to remember and to listen to that still small voice that's calling you to something beyond anything you could ever dream or hope or imagine. And it'll last far beyond when that sun doesn't rise again. Y'all, thank you for being a part of our community.